Number 2 maneuver's pitfall is to not know what you need to know about the spiral. Don't feel special if you have never heard this logic before. Don't feel bad if your instructor never taught you this. It's little known but very, very important information. Number 1, everyone reads that their glider is certified to recover from any number of events, generally without pilot input. It is good to know that in the testing environment, the test pilots will oftentimes induce a maneuver, and then they will in many cases put their arms out to the side to show the video, to prove on the video that they didn't help the glider to recover. Not only that, their general MO is to just relax the hips and be loose in the harness. It turns out that nothing could be further from what your average pilot is going to do when they end up inadvertently in a spiral. More aptly, the average pilot will tend to stiffen up. An average pilot might not be aware of the body or the hands. And so to that end, the maneuver's certification doesn't really tell you what you need to know about your glider. You need to get over the water, dabble with the entry to the spiral, the exit of the spiral, and then you might know something about it. Up until that point, this is the information you need. Over the years, there's some talk about such and such a glider is slightly more prone to stable spiral than the other. It's probably worth knowing that every glider, just by merit of the fact that we are a big weight at the end of a long pendulum, is prone to the stable spiral. It's just inherent to the aircraft. So any glider can get to the point where it's turning in a sort of mild and mellow way, and then all of a sudden the spiral seems to have taken on a life of its own. And when that happens, we're all naturally a little bit alarmed with the visuals, with the G's, and there's also a feeling of betrayal. How did this happen? I didn't deserve this. So during that moment, we all read in the book that you could just go hands up, and it's good to put a study on what hands up does to a glider that's already in the spiral mode. A general hands up type motion when a glider is already in the spiral mode just tells the glider to continue. Now I know that's in contrast to what the certification says, but if you ever had opportunity to check it, put the glider in there and then let off smoothly, you'll find that it tends to just continue. The other bit of logic is that if you've been pulling right brake to get into the spiral, and then you bring in the left brake to come out, it might not work. Can you see why? It's because this hand is still in. So the glider's in a spiral mode. This hand caused it. This hand came in to save the day. But all the glider hears is go harder. You ended up pulling both. You forgot to let off on the inside one. Moving right along, every pilot knows that which side is the outside brake. Which side is the outside brake? It's the left side, isn't it? And that's absolutely the case. And it continues to be the case. But the question is, what happens when the glider gets here? Which side is the outside brake? Do you know which side is the outside brake now? Well, it turns out it's still the left side. But you see how the visual has changed? You can no longer identify it by it being the high side. They're now even. And guess what? The glider will also do this, and it can spiral like this. And guess what happens when the maneuvers coach says outside brake, or when you rely on your logic that says outside brake? Half the people, half the time, see the high side and treat it like it's the outside brake. They pulled the wrong brake. So inside brake, outside brake recovery in the deep spiral mode is a thing. And you don't know if you're going to be prone to it until you've been there. And we've given up trying to figure out who is going to be prone to it and who's not. You can have a fighter pilot guy next to somebody who's not G tolerant at all, and the fighter pilot guy could get confused. Incidentally, on Gs, we've brought in the guys who are used to tolerating the high Gs in aircraft, and they report that the Gs are every bit as high as the Gs that they pull in a fighter jet or in an aerobatic aircraft. So if you're wondering if the Gs are real, they certainly are. That was worth the price of admission right there, wasn't it? Now you know a lot more about spirals, but the most important thing you can know about spirals is that if this is what got you into the spiral, then this is the move that gets you out. You ready? So we oftentimes say it's like you have a kayak paddle in your hand and you're trying to smack the water on the high side. That's what knocks the glider that's in a deep spiral mode out. The only detail is that after you knock it out of the spiral mode, you have an obligation to deal with that energy. More than one pilot has caused themselves some trouble during the exit by not managing the energy well. And can you guess which way you're supposed to turn with it? If you were in a right spiral and you gave that hard left brake and the glider starts to trend out, it turns out that the energy is best dissipated back in the same direction of turn. So think about how willing you're going to be to carve back into that spiral just a little after you just had a spiral emergency the same direction. Not very willing, but it is worth your time. And it's worth knowing that even after the glider has done what most people would consider a bad exit, it's never too late to look and lean and turn, cause another 90-degree turn, straighten up the glider, and you can exit into normal flight without a big surge. So from the top on spirals, it's a slippery slope. It's a dangerous place to go. You can suffer inadvertent maneuvers that'll put you in a spiral. It can be a surprise spiral. If you ever do get in a spiral, remember, hands up. Yes, you can try it, but it's not the most likely thing to get you out of it. Be careful of getting just totally stiff. Consider just letting off, maybe tap the outside brake. In our camp, if one circle goes by in which your efforts to make the spiral exit are not fruitful, we say go to the reserve. Just take your hand off the brake, reach down, start grabbing it. Remember, when you go to the reserve in the spiral, the handle could be 1.5 feet different location. So this process of getting your hand off the brake and going down there, getting to the handle, pulling it out, maybe pulling against a couple G's, it could take a while. People say, I'd never go to my reserve in the first circle. I'd try harder than that, especially if I was high. Well, here's the memo. The G's can accelerate so fast that despite your best efforts to steer out of it, you might not be able to. And when you go to the reserve, if you wait too long, you might not be able to. People suffer from tunnel vision. Some people see black dots. Some people feel faint. Other people get stiff. Other people go completely limp, like pass out style. So that's not a place you want to go. Log mentally for yourself, especially if you're a beginner. You get inadvertently in a spiral. Your efforts to make it exit in the first circle or so don't work. You're immediately going for the reserve. Remember, some people have let go, gone for the reserve, and then had the glider exit on its own. That happens, and that's okay. Perfect. Also remember, there have been people who blacked out in the first circle, so you can't go wrong by getting the reserve out. Can't say enough good things about reserves. Be excited to throw yours, especially out of a spiral where it's going to open quickly. The landing's going to be amazing. You'll walk away from it. You will fly again the next day if you want to. And none of our stories, none of our bad stories contain the element of reserve in them. But we have plenty of stories in which people should have thrown the reserve but didn't.